The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back. Vintage Sports in the Zone. I'm Ralph Tycho with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and we've got three of the four mavens with us. With us are Alan Blumkin.
Hello there, everybody.
George Case III.
Hi there.
And Hal Box going to lead us. We're waiting David Hubler. He'll join us or won't in mid-show. And Hal, we're going to talk about the Super Bowl. So you guys have a terrific show.
Well, sure. The highlight of the NFL season every year is the Super Bowl, the last game that they play. And it was played 2 days ago in Miami. And it was, I thought, one of the better games. They had a dud of a game last year between the Rams and the New England Patriots. And they came back this year with Kansas City Chiefs, who play, by the way, in Missouri, not in Kansas, and private joke. And,
we all heard that today, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The Kansas City Chiefs played the San Francisco 49ers. And this was an intriguing game. The matchup was intriguing because both of those teams had not played in the Super Bowl in many years. The 49ers had a good run in the years of Joe Montana and Bill Walsh and those guys, and then they fell on some hard times.
They were in 6 years ago with Kaepernick, the Harbaugh Bowl.
Yeah, but for the most part, they've been in the last after that have been in the doldrums until they traded for a young kid from New England, and he became a star in San Francisco. The quarterback, and Kansas City came up with a quarterback who I knew when he was 5 years old. This kid was the son of a Mets pitcher named Pat Mahomes, who pitched for the Mets for a couple of years in 2000 and thereabouts, and I was covering the team in those days. And Pat would bring his little boy to the game, and the little kid, Patrick Mahomes, would run around the clubhouse in a Mets uniform. He was a very cute little boy. He's about 5 years old, and that was you didn't think any more of it. And the next thing I know, he's playing quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. And so we go into the Super Bowl, and last year, his first full year in the league as a starter, he became the league's most valuable player. So it shows you how good a player he is. He comes into the Super Bowl to face the 49ers, and for pretty much three quarters, he looked ordinary, I thought. He did not stand out. He played okay, but it was not special. And we get to midway through the fourth quarter, about 6 minutes to play, 6.5 minutes to play, and the 49ers are leading 10 by 10 points, 20-10, and all of a sudden, this kid Mahomes throws two touchdown passes, runs for another touchdown, and all of a sudden, the Kansas City Chiefs win the game 31-20. And Pat Mahomes is the MVP. Patrick Mahomes is the MVP. So in three seasons, two in which he was a starter, he was the league MVP, and then he was the Super Bowl MVP. That's the stuff of dreams. I mean, you can't make that up. So
do you know how he happened to? Do you know how he happened to choose football over baseball? I mean, normally.
Welcome to the show, David. Where you been, pal? I don't know. You tell us.
No, I just missed by a couple of minutes, and I dialed the wrong number, actually.
Oh, all right. Well, you started to say that how he chose. He was a baseball player at Texas Tech, I think, and he was drafted by the Tigers. How did he choose football? Tell us.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm asking.
Oh, I thought you knew.
No, I was asking you.
Oh, no. I thought you knew the answer.
No,
well,
I don't.
He did choose
I'm sorry.
baseball. He did not choose baseball, rather. He chose football. and it was a great thing for the Kansas City Chiefs, who had not won a Super Bowl in 50 years.
Right.
And that's a long run to have to wait for a championship. And
they haven't even been in one in 50 years.
That's true.
Yeah.
And the coach, Andy Reid, had been coaching in the league for 21 years, a beloved coach, a very knowledgeable guy about the game, but had never gotten to the Super Bowl, never won a Super Bowl. And so it was a combination of a young kid and a veteran coach, and Kansas City's got a parade, I think, tomorrow to celebrate this victory. So I'm curious about what you guys thought of the game and your thoughts in general about the Super Bowl.
Well, Hal, I just wanted to mention one thing. When you talked about Andy Reid, being from the Philadelphia area, I followed Andy Reid quite a bit, and he had some, good years with the Eagles. Got him to a Super Bowl, but never won it. And very knowledgeable, a terrific guy. And I'm personally very happy that he was able to get a Super Bowl ring. He's very highly thought of. And Mahomes, I can only, echo your comments. He had a sensational fourth quarter. I thought he did play, okay, first three quarters, but then he really, caught fire. And, I knew that he was the son of Pat Mahomes, who did pitch in the major leagues. And I believe, Hal, maybe the year you covered him with the Mets, he had a really good season. I think he was 8-0.
He was. He was a very good pitcher for the Mets.
Right.
But
right.
I don't think they appreciated how good he was. He was always almost on the fringe of that staff. And why I couldn't tell you, because every time they put him out there, he produced for them. Right. But he was only there a couple of years. But the thing that sticks in my mind was this cute little kid running around in a Mets uniform in the clubhouse. And he really was an adorable young man, 5 years old. 5-year-old kids are generally cute. And he was just a cute little kid. And he just, it kind of made you smile when you walked into that clubhouse. So it was really something to see him in the middle of that Super Bowl winning the MVP and winning the game for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, he seems like a really down to earth, nice kid too. He's got tremendous talent, but he handles the press very well.
The other thing about this kid is they came from behind. They were 10 points down with 6 minutes to play, 6.5 minutes to play, and they came back and won the game.
They were
behind in every playoff game by double digits.
Yeah,
that's not done. You just can't expect that you're going to recover that way. But they were down 24-0 against Houston. And 3 touchdowns and a field goal, and they beat Houston 51-something, I guess, 51-31.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a remarkable recovery. So when they were down by 10 points with 6 minutes to play, I wasn't exactly ready to write them off because I knew that this kid had some magic in him. And sure enough, he just took them down the field. He had some help with a pass interference call, but still, he delivered the goods for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he will forever be right there alongside George Brett and the people who played for the Royals, who won championships for the Royals.
And he also has youth on his side too. I think he's a young kid. He's only 24, I think.
Yeah,
24. Yeah.
So he and Garoppolo the same way. He's a young guy playing. He played behind Brady, but they're both on the young side, where some of the established NFL quarterbacks, because it takes quite a while. But you got Aaron Rodgers is getting up there, and Peyton Manning was probably the best around at the time. He finally retired, and when you had Elway, his great years, but he retired because they were all older. But Mahomes is a young guy. If he stays healthy, I think he's got a heck of a career.
You're watching the passing of the torch in quarterbacks because
Eli
Manning is retired.
Yeah, Eli's retired. Mm-hmm.
That group, which was terrific, a terrific group of quarterbacks, Ben Roethlisberger and that whole class, they're getting old, and they're being replaced by young, very talented quarterbacks. You got the most valuable player in the league was the Baltimore quarterback Jackson, another kid. I mean, they're just they're all over the place.
The Steelers don't have any.
Say that?
The Steelers don't have anybody, and they're going to be horrible like they were if. Yeah, I know, like they were after Roethlisberger. I mean, I thought Tomlin did an incredible job to get this team to win 8 games with the quarterbacks that they had after Roethlisberger got hurt. But you're right, he's been around as long as Manning. And another one who's I always thought was extremely overrated, Philip Rivers.
Right, he never got them to a Super Bowl.
He never got close to them to win anything in his 16 years there, whatever it is there. And with Andy Reid, George, when he got to the Super Bowl with the Eagles, this is so long ago that Donovan McNabb was their quarterback.
Right.
That's 2004. I mean, that's almost a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it is amazing, Alan. I'm glad you mentioned that. Donovan McNabb was a terrific quarterback, but I didn't realize how long ago it was. And you're absolutely right. Andy Reid has been around a long time, and as I said earlier, I'm very happy for him to finally get that ring. But with the Eagles, I mean, he was very well respected. Terrific football guy, as opposed to some of the other head coaches that the Eagles have had. Andy Reid had a very long career and was highly thought of, and everybody wished him well, when he went to Kansas City, and he's really built quite a football program there.
He went from Philadelphia to Kansas City, just like the A's.
Yeah, right.
That's right. That's an interesting thought.
I know.
That's it. We're bringing baseball into this, aren't we?
I know. Yeah.
Right.
But from my standpoint, I thought that the 49ers really had their number, with their defense. And there's a couple of things that Shanahan didn't do. Two times Kansas City had 4th and 1, and they went for it. I got it both times.
They made it both times.
And San Francisco had a 4th.
When he did that, I said to myself, that's the guts of a burglar, Andy Reid,
And then when San Francisco had the same opportunity, they settled for a field goal. When you settle for field goals all the time, you generally don't win.
Well,
and the other was the botching of the timeouts after in the second at the end of the first half. They didn't use any timeouts to try to do something, and then
play the clock.
And then
I noticed the same thing.
And then he was calling timeouts at the end of the game, which to me was Bush.
I know. Yeah, I agree with you, Alan. That was kind of odd, the way they were handling the clock. But you have to give credit to the Chiefs. I mean, they were down by 10 points. Again, this kid has some magic in him that he's able to. He just doesn't give up.
He got off that run.
And a lot of quarterbacks who are down 10 points, and they say, "C'est la vie. We'll come back next week."
When he got off that touchdown run against Tennessee 2 weeks ago, from the 26-yard touchdown run, I couldn't believe it. I was actually shouted, incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very elusive player,
he has a tremendous touch.
But
a sense of what's going on out there.
What impresses me most about him, how cool he is.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't get flustered. He doesn't get, I've seen quarterbacks who had nervous, dancing feet in the backfield running around. But this guy is he's very, very cool and calm and collected, and he runs that offense pretty well. I can't say enough about Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, the biggest shock of the playoffs to me was Baltimore getting blown out by Tennessee.
Well, I'm sure Baltimore was shocked, too.
Yeah, I know. And, a lot of people's opinions on Lamar Jackson went down quite a bit after that game.
Mahomes... Anybody can have a bad game.
I know, yeah, but it's the question of when you have it.
He's an MVP. He's the most valuable player in the league this year.
And the only reason Kansas City didn't get there last year is because in the overtime against the Patriots in the conference championship, the Patriots drove the length of the field. And Mahomes never touched the ball.
One of the nicest parts of this postseason was not having to deal with the Patriots again.
Oh, yeah.
I was so tired of seeing Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in the playoffs, and it was a pleasure to see them out of it for a change.
I think the reason he chose football over baseball was football you didn't have to do a minor league apprenticeship.
Well, that may be. But, football is a lot tougher game. You can last a lot longer in baseball.
Or maybe he didn't want to compete with his father's reputation.
I don't know.
All. Yeah.
But baseball is a much less physical activity. But we have somebody mentioned earlier, and I was pleased to hear that chimed in with that. We have pitchers and catches reporting pretty soon, boys.
Yes.
Another
this
week
next
or so,
week,
right?
actually. Yeah, the 10th, and I think the Sox, Red Sox are reporting on the 10th, or the Nationals. The 10th and the 12th are the teams are reporting for spring training. Pitchers and catchers.
Are they going to have a manager by then, the Red Sox?
Who knows?
Who knows?
They better.
But I tell you what, they will have. They're not going to have Mookie Betts by then.
You think the trade will be made?
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah, they want to get rid of him because they're paying sale price and Evaldi fortunes. Yeah.
Yes, they are. And that's one thing we've never discussed, and I was thinking about that tonight before we went on, is that we've always talked, us old-timers, we've always talked about how the game has changed and the things we don't like about the game. But the one thing that we have never talked about, I think, is how the game has. We've talked about the free agency and how that's evolved and changed the game. But here's a thought: Mookie Betts is probably the best player on that team. Now he only has one more year to go before he enters free agency. The Red Sox are being literally forced, to trade this guy because they can't afford. They can't afford to pay him what they think he'll probably get next year, and so they're settling for literally second best. They're going to trade him and hopefully get a number of up-and-coming young stars, and that's never happened before. I mean,
well, David, he was quoted as saying that there's no way he wanted to stay in Boston.
Right, but I'm saying
maybe it's because of the whole racial thing up there.
Well, there is that. There's always that in Boston. Yeah, no question. I think they would have booed Ted Williams out of town if he'd been black. But but it's a dynamic of the game today that was not apparent. It wasn't even there prior to the free agency. Teams are forced to trade a player who they know they can't keep, like Anthony Rendon. The same thing, but they let him go. They could have traded him and gotten something for it. It's a new dynamic. It's a dynamic we haven't really thought about very much here.
Well, to a large extent, David, to a large extent, the players run the game today.
Absolutely.
And it's
the agents.
It's especially bad in the NBA, but that's a whole different story altogether.
Yeah, well, I don't worry about the NBA, but the agents, they're the ones who are controlling this whole process.
We had Scott Boras at one of our SABR national conventions. I think it was the one in Phoenix 20 years ago. And he had a whole staff of people.
Mm-hmm.
But he said during this time they worked their asses off. And a lot of times when they have the meetings, and this is back in those days, there were a lot more ARP cases than there are now. They would come in, and a lot of teams, they would be better prepared than a lot of other teams. A lot of teams would to do ARP cases. And ARP cases always left bitter taste in the mouth because the player is the agent is trying to play a guy as Babe Ruth, and the team is trying to describe the player as Ray Oyler.
Well,
that's true.
You mentioned the racism in Boston.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm very well aware of. I did a long interview with Bill Russell, the great Bill Russell, years ago, obviously, when I was working. And he talked about it a little bit, and he was offended by it, certainly. But I'm not sure that it's as vibrant now as it was in those days, because they've embraced, for example, Big Papi, David Ortiz. I mean, he's a
that's true.
Coast of the town in Boston, even though he's been retired for a couple of years. So times change and players change. And Mookie Betts signed a very fancy contract for this season, so you won't have to make a benefit for him if he plays this.
No, I know that. Yeah.
And that does not necessarily mean that the Red Sox have to trade him now. They can trade him in June.
Yeah,
before the trade
that's
deadline.
true. But what I've been reading in the papers is that it's a done deal. So I don't know personally, of course, but I've seen in several sources that within the next 2 days he will be gone.
The Dodgers are supposed to be the team that wants him most.
It's another West Coast team. I think is it the Padres are also in the running for him. I think, yeah.
The Giants signed Wilmer Flores today.
In a circumstance like that, you pick your farm system clean to get the one guy you want. Is that a smart move? I wonder. You're using a lot of assets,
right?
Guys who can help you down the line to get one player.
Good point. You're right, Hal. That's a good point.
Granted that he's a terrific player, but maybe I have 4 players who can fill spots for me that I have to give up to get them.
That's cheaper. Yeah.
A lot cheaper. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, not only cheaper, but more than adequate players. I mean, Boston is going to want the pick of the pack. They're going to want your best players. And I don't know that that's a wise move on the part of the team trading for him to give up all your assets to get one player.
Yeah, well, you got to get the player, which in basketball they do a lot of that sign and trade. In baseball, they don't do that. Where if you get a player who's a top-notch player who's a free agent, you do your damnedest to get him signed. Before he hits free agency.
Well, sure.
Of course. Yeah.
And you got to please him. You got to make sure that you like the Mets did that with Jacob deGrom. They knew what deGrom was worth on the open market, and they gave it to him so that he would stay with the Mets. Yeah,
Francisco Lindor came out with a statement yesterday. It was him or his agent that the Indians are nowhere in the ballpark, even to get him signed for this year. So he's another one that the Indians got rid of Kluber, they got rid of Trevor Bauer, and they may get rid of Lindor and step down from winning that the AL Central.
True, but the trade for Bauer, they traded Bauer for Puig, right?
Yeah.
That was
who's a free agent now also, who hasn't been signed by anybody.
No, he's a free agent. But, I mean, both those guys are a little strange, They march to a different drummer. And for me, and I'm not a general manager, and I didn't play one on TV either, for me, I don't want guys like that on my team. I mean, they're poison in the clubhouse, or they can be poison in the clubhouse. I want guys who are playing, who are part of the program, who buy into my program. And, it seems to me that you're looking for trouble when you have a Puig or you have a Bauer on your team. No matter how productive they are on the field, they're a little off line, and I don't need that on my team.
How many times has Puig been traded out the last couple of years?
A lot of times.
He's bounced around,
The same
he started out like the greatest thing going.
The same thing is true of our invalid left fielder here in New York, Cespedes. Cespedes has been traded a number of times, and when he came to the Mets, he led them to a pennant. There's no question about it. In 2015, he was terrific. but he hasn't played in 2 years, and you never know if he's going to play or he's not going to play. My heel, my leg, my thigh, everything is hurting him. You know.
It's like Jacoby Ellsbury. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Yankees caught him. They're saying that basically he can go to the proper doctors, or I think, because they don't want to pay him another $20 million for nothing.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, there was something about that. It wasn't just he didn't follow the treatment regimen or something along whatever it was. Yeah, they had to dump him. I mean that was almost like a revenge kind of deal when they plucked him out of the Red Sox.
And the Yankees also finally gave up on Greg Bird.
Yeah,
he was a first baseman that got hurt every time you turned around. And
he
signed a minor league deal with Texas.
Texas, right.
But when they had Greg Bird, that swing in that ballpark, I thought he was going to hit 50 home runs. Because he's a left-handed hitter and a close-in right field, but he just never could stay healthy.
And he had a beautiful swing.
If they wanted another one not to stay healthy, they already have Stanton, who played a grand total of 9 games last year.
That's true, but, he was the most valuable player when they traded for him.
Well, you're playing in Miami where there's no pressure.
Well, I mean.
Well, we'll see. I mean,
one season of
injuries. One season of injuries is not indicative of a whole career. Although with Bird, you had to say, you had to give up on him. I mean, the poor. Who was it? There was another guy that the Yankees had for a while. He'd actually come up with Baltimore, I believe, first baseman, and he was a nephew of another major leaguer. I can't think of his name right now, but he was always injured. He was constant, and then the Yankees picked him up, and he didn't even, he was out within 3 or 4 games. I can't think of his name. It was
the Yankees had a pitcher like that, Carl Pavano.
Oh, sure.
Carl Pavano was always hurt, and it became a joke in the clubhouse. They did something with his locker. I don't recall the details of it, but they were so fed up with the players were fed up with him, and he had been a productive pitcher in his other stops. I think he pitched in Boston. I think he pitched in Montreal.
Minnesota primarily.
And Minnesota, that's right. He had been a reasonably productive pitcher, but if he made 5 starts as a Yankee, he made a lot. I mean, it was a joke.
Yeah, Mike Mussina was once quoted as in the Yankee clubhouse that they called the disabled list of Pavano, because this guy was always out.
Yeah. Johnson. His name was the first baseman. I'm trying to think
Nick Johnson.
Nick Johnson.
Nick Johnson. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was always hurt. Yeah.
Always hurt.
Another one. Yeah.
You can't account for things like that. Stuff happens. That's why the game is so fascinating. You never know what's going to happen next.
Right. I mean, you think, well, with Bird too. I mean, here's a guy who's playing first base. To me, and I know it's technically there's a lot to it, but still, it's just first base. I mean, you're receiving a lot of throws, fine. You're not running down fly balls in the outfield. You're not handling too often smashes hit right at you. But so you would think that of all the players on a team, first base would probably be the least trying physically when you think about all the other position players. And Bird just couldn't stay up on the field. Nick Johnson couldn't stay on the field. I mean, it was sad for them, of course. But boy, I was kind of glad to see somebody pick up Bird. I kind of had I like
him. Texas, did you say?
Texas.
Yeah, Texas signed it to a minor league deal.
All right. Before we end this evening's conversation, I would like your opinion, guys, the 3 of you, on the Hall of Fame balloting and the brilliant writer who left Derek Jeter off his ballot, the one writer who left Derek Jeter off his ballot.
Yeah, they announced he's going to remain anonymous.
Yes.
Well, yeah, they
wisely so.
Ballot today, but not his, whoever he is or her. I mean,
no, I mean Jeter we know is a no-brainer, and I can live with Larry Walker, even though he did pile up a lot of numbers in Coors.
We knew Jeter was going to get into the Hall of Fame. That was not a question.
And Larry Walker did lead the National League,
and some voter, one genius voter, decided to leave him off the ballot. Well, my position on that is, if you feel strong enough to leave him off the ballot, and you know that it's going to be a controversial decision on your part, own it. Stand up and say, I did it, and this is why I did it. But don't hide behind anonymity. That's my opinion. What do I know?
I know. Somebody posted that whatever day it was the anniversary of Ted Williams being elected. They said that he was on 182 of the 202 ballots in his year. So none of them, Aaron, Mays, Mantle,
I know
Yogi, Ted Williams, Musial, none of them got 100%.
Alan, that was a different era. And,
I know,
Willie Mays was the most complete player I ever saw, and I saw a lot of players. And Willie Mays found, 23 writers found some way to leave Willie Mays off the ballot. That was what was done in those days.
I know,
Nobody wanted a first ballot Hall of Famer. You got to wait. You're not going to go in on the first ballot. Don't be such a big shot. Okay, so that's what they did in those days. That era is over, and now we are at a time where you're rewarding, like you did Mariano Rivera, who was the elite closer of his era. Well, Derek Jeter, in my mind, was the elite shortstop of his era. He made plays that I never saw a shortstop make. And he had over 3,000 hits, and on I could give you all of his credentials. So how do you not vote for him? And if you choose not to vote for him, defend it. Tell me why you chose not to vote for him. Don't hide behind anonymity. That's my argument.
And he played clean. It wasn't like one of these guys with the enhancement drugs or anything.
Right. That's right.
And he wasn't a surly kind of guy. Wouldn't talk to the press. I mean, he was always out there. He was out there playing the game that he loved.
100%.
Yeah. Speaking of all-around players, Henry Aaron is 86 tomorrow.
Yes, that's right. It's his birthday.
Yeah, God, I'm so old. I remember him when he came up. God, man, that's a lot of years ago.
Yeah, you know, Alan and Hal and David. I think Aaron's has some physical problems too. I think the last time I saw him, he either had a cane or a wheelchair.
Yeah,
he
broke his hip. He broke his
hip.
Is
that what it was? Okay.
Yeah, he's been on a cane for quite a while. I mean, he was on. They had to help when he showed up in Cooperstown last year for the induction. They had to help him to his seat.
Wow.
Well, it's sad for ball players because in any sport. I mean, we always think about them in their prime, but they're human beings, like we talked last week, and they age and they get infirmed with health problems, and it's hard. I know when you look at some of these players walking out on the field, they can barely navigate, and yet your thoughts and like what Alan and David and Hal, you remember them in their prime, and when
you remember what they looked like on their baseball card 60 years ago.
Well, yeah, and that was one reason that I know Joe DiMaggio always said, he did not want the fans to remember him as a frail old man. He wouldn't even go out on the field. He'd come in his suit
at the very end,
wave to people and that kind of stuff. That was as much as he was going to do. And it's always
he stopped wearing
a
uniform. He stopped wearing a uniform.
Yeah, he sure did. Right, absolutely.
He didn't.
Rizzuto did that also. He stopped wearing a uniform.
Who's that?
So Rizzuto's
Rizzuto. Rizzuto. Well, right. Yeah, a lot of them do that because again, they want the fans to remember them when they were playing and were strong and guys that could go out there and play the game and not the ones who are just walking out now and trying to resemble what they were 40 years ago, because you can't. So it's a very, very hard. It's a very, very hard thing for an athlete to know when it's time. But it's also a very hard thing for an athlete at an old timers game you're putting on a uniform and doing all that stuff, and you're bringing back the memories, but you cannot perform on the field the way you used to. So just come out, wave to the fans, whatever it is. Right.
That's how I saw Whitey Ford about 3 years ago at Old Timers Day, and he didn't even make it up the steps of the dugout. He just sort of got to the top step and he waved. And poor guy,
his granddaughter was at the Sabre National Convention here 2 years ago, 2017, and I spoke to her for a little while, and I said, how's your grandmother doing? She was surprised I even knew who grandmother was. Says Whitey's wife, and she told me after I started telling her how much Whitey meant to me when I was a lot younger, and she said he misses Yogi terribly. And he's 90. He's 91, and he will not. He stopped signing anything. They said through his agent or whatever that he's not. You can't send. If you send him stuff, he's not going to sign anything anymore.
Well, I remember David. You might have been there, but this was at Nationalist Park Veterans Day quite a few years ago. I was invited to go down there and speak, and Yogi was there, and I was really appalled by everybody coming and grabbing him and doing all that. I mean, Yogi was a wonderful guy, but he was an old man, and they wouldn't leave him alone. And so I can sympathize with players. They get to be elderly. They don't want to be fawned over the way they used to. I mean, they'd like to have some privacy. And
Yogi was not a big guy. I mean, he was
he wasn't.
An old man.
I was
at a convention or something. He was
how small he was. Right.
Yes, exactly.
He's like 5'8". Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But his swing was beautiful. I still get chills every time I see that on a video or whatever. I still get chills of watching him swing.
No, it was, Alan.
A ball that
was
bounces in front of the plate into the right field stand.
Supposedly he had more home runs at the old foul home runs at the old Yankee Stadium than anybody. But
I told someone this story today or the day before, I don't know. I was in the clubhouse. I was in the manager's office after a game. Yogi was the manager of the Mets, and he's looking at the newspaper. It's the last week of the season. He's looking at the newspaper, and it says that the Mets are 6 games behind with 8 games to play. And he says 6 behind with 8 to play. And he looks up and he says, "It ain't over till it's over." And I jumped up and I said, "Don't say another word, Yogi. I'm out of here." Because I knew that I had the quote of the year.
Yeah, great. Oh, wow.
When they ran a couple of weeks ago, when they ran the Jeopardy Greatest of All Time tournament, Alex Trebek must have used that line 10 times during those 4 nights.
Oh, is that right?
It ain't over till it's over. And the other one that's made, has become part of our lexicon is it's deja vu all over again, which I've seen newscasters use.
Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, that quote of Yogi's also was used in the Philadelphia papers the other day, talking about getting back to the Super Bowl. That was what it said. Yogi once said, "It ain't over till it's over," and that's the way the Super Bowl looked. I mean, as we talked earlier, there it is, down to the last 6 minutes of the game.
That's right.
And Mahomes, brings them back, and they win the whole thing.
Yeah, I have a close friend of mine who's a huge baseball fan, but he doesn't like pro football. So he watched maybe the last 5 minutes of the game, Super Bowl game the other day. So I said that if you don't want to watch it, nobody's going to stop you.
Very good.
Which is paraphrase of a Yogi line, yeah.
The Yogi is, right. Yeah. Well, it's good to have this conversation tonight. I'm glad we did, and I'm glad we talked about the game behind us and the games ahead of us. The Super Bowl is behind us, and we have a baseball season very soon ahead of us, and that's always a fun time of the year. Mm-hmm. So we look forward to pitchers and catches in another week or so, guys, and we'll meet here again next Tuesday night and talk about it.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Good night,
everybody. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.